The desert did not forgive, and it did not forget. Every grain of sand carried a story, of blood spilled, of promises broken, of riders who vanished into the heat shimmer and were never seen again. In the small frontier town of Red Hollow, those stories were whispered at night, when the wind scraped against wooden shutters and lanterns flickered like uneasy hearts. And at the center of those whispers was a name. Elias Vargo, the desert bandit. Some said he was a ghost. Others swore he was a devil. A few, very few, claimed he was once a man who had loved and lost. But for Clara Whitmore, he was something far simpler. He was the enemy. Clara stood on the balcony of the sheriff's office, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon where the desert bled into the sky. The sun had just begun its slow descent, painting everything gold and crimson. She rested one hand on the worn wooden railing, the other on the pistol strapped to her hip. She had learned to shoot before she learned to sew. Her father, Sheriff Daniel Whitmore, had raised her that way, not out of cruelty, but necessity. Red Hollow was no place for softness. Not with outlaws circling like vultures and law hanging by a fragile thread. Still watching for ghosts, her father's voice came from behind. Clara didn't turn. Not ghosts. Just one man. Sheriff Whitmore stepped beside her, older now, his shoulders heavier with years of responsibility. You can't chase shadows forever. He's not a shadow, Clara replied quietly. He's real, and he's getting closer. The sheriff sighed. Elias Vargo hasn't struck here in months. That's what worries me. Silence settled between them. The wind carried dust across the street below, where townsfolk hurried to finish their business before nightfall. Clara, her father said finally, revenge will eat you alive. She turned then, her gaze steady and unflinching. This isn't revenge, it's justice. But even as she said it, something in her voice wavered, just for a moment. Because deep down, she wasn't entirely sure anymore. The attack came at midnight. It always did. The sound of hooves thundered through the sleeping town, followed by gunshots that shattered the stillness like glass. Flames erupted near the supply store, painting the sky orange. Clara was already awake. She grabbed her pistol and rushed outside, boots pounding against the wooden floor. By the time she reached the street, chaos had taken hold, people screaming, doors slamming, shadows darting between buildings. And there, at the center of it all, was him. Elias Vargo. He sat atop a black horse, his face half covered by a dark scarf, eyes sharp and unreadable. He moved with calm precision, issuing silent commands to the men around him. Not a wild outlaw, a leader. Clara raised her pistol. Their eyes met. For a moment, everything else faded. The fire, the noise, the fear. It was just the two of them, locked in a silent understanding that stretched across the burning street. Then he turned his horse and rode straight toward her. Clara fired. The shot echoed through the night, but he leaned low, dodging with effortless grace. In seconds, he was upon her. His horse reared, forcing her back. Before she could fire again, he was off the saddle, moving faster than she expected. His hand closed around her wrist, twisting just enough to make her drop the gun. She gasped, struggling, but his grip was firm, not cruel, just controlled. "Sheriff's daughter," he said, his voice low, almost calm. "You've grown." Clara froze. "You know me." A faint smile touched his eyes, though his face remained hidden. "I know more than you think." Before she could respond, one of his men shouted, "We need to go." Elias released her wrist, but instead of stepping away, he leaned closer. "Tell your father," he said, softly, "the past isn't buried." Then he mounted his horse in one fluid motion. And just like that, he was gone. The town spent the next day repairing what it could. Burned wood, shattered glass, shaken hearts. But Clara could think of nothing except his words. The past isn't buried. She sat in the sheriff's office, staring at an old, dust-covered box she had pulled from storage. Her father had always kept it locked away. Until now. Slowly, she opened it. Inside were letters, photographs, and one badge, old, worn, no longer in use. Deputy Elias Vargo. Clara's breath caught. "No," she whispered. Her father stood in the doorway. "You weren't supposed to find that." She turned to him, eyes wide. "He was your deputy." Sheriff Whitmore's face hardened. "A long time ago. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it doesn't matter anymore." It matters to me, Clara snapped. He attacked this town, our town. And you're telling me he used to wear a badge? Her father stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He was the best man I ever worked with. Loyal, brave, honest. What happened? The sheriff hesitated. Then he said, I failed him. Years ago, Elias Vargo had been everything a lawman should be. He had believed in justice, in protecting the innocent, in doing what was right, no matter the cost. Until the day the town turned on him. A wealthy landowner had accused Elias's younger brother of theft. There was no proof, only suspicion. But in Red Hollow, suspicion was often enough. The mob came quickly. Elias had begged for time, for a fair investigation. But fear and anger had already taken hold. And Sheriff Whitmore had made the worst decision of his life. He had stood aside. By the time the truth came out, that the accusation was false, it was too late. Elias's brother was dead, and something inside Elias had died with him. He left that night, the sheriff said quietly. Never said a word, just disappeared, and became a bandit, Clara finished. Her father nodded. Clara felt a strange, unfamiliar weight settle in her chest. He's not just a criminal, she murmured. He's a man who was broken. Don't let sympathy cloud your judgment, the sheriff warned. He's still dangerous. Clara looked down at the badge in her hand. Deputy Elias Vargo. Then she made a decision. I'm going after him. The desert stretched endlessly before her, harsh and unforgiving. Clara rode alone. She followed the faint trails left behind. Hoofprints, scattered ashes, whispers carried by those who had seen the bandits passing. Days turned into nights. The sun burned. The cold bit. But she didn't stop, until she found him. He was standing at the edge of a canyon, his back to her, as if he had been expecting her all along. You're persistent, he said without turning. Clara dismounted slowly. You knew I'd come. I hoped you wouldn't. Why? He turned then, pulling down the scarf from his face. For the first time, she saw him clearly. Not a monster, not a ghost, just a man, with tired eyes and a past that refused to let go. Because this isn't your fight, he said. It is now. They stood facing each other, the desert wind swirling around them. Why did you attack the town? Clara demanded. Elias's gaze hardened. Because the men who destroyed my life are still there. Living comfortably, untouched. That doesn't justify hurting innocent people. I don't hurt innocents, he said sharply. I take from those who hide behind power. And the fire. A distraction, he admitted. Nothing more. Clara studied him. You could have killed me, she said. That night, he looked away. I don't kill people who don't deserve it. Silence fell. Then Clara said something she never thought she would. Come back. He laughed bitterly. Back to what? A town that let my brother die. A town that made a mistake, she said firmly. A town that can change. People don't change, he replied. Some do. Their eyes met again, and this time, something shifted. The men who had falsely accused Elias's brother were powerful, but not untouchable. With Clara's help, the truth came to light. Evidence was uncovered, witnesses spoke, and for the first time in years, justice was not just a word. It was real. The men were arrested. The town watched as they were taken away, not with anger, but with something deeper. Regret. Elias stood at the edge of Red Hollow, uncertain. You don't have to stay, Clara said. I know. But you can. He looked at her. Why are you helping me? Clara thought for a moment. Because justice isn't about the past, she said. It's about what we choose to do next. Elias glanced at the badge she held out to him. The same one he had left behind. Deputy, I'm not that man anymore, he said. No, Clara agreed. But you could be better. The wind stirred again, softer this time. Elias took the badge, not as a return to who he was, but as a step toward who he could become. Lesson of the story. The desert teaches harsh truths, but also powerful ones. Justice without compassion becomes cruelty. Revenge may feel right, but it never heals what's broken. People can fall, but they can also rise, if given a chance. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do, is choose forgiveness over hatred. Because even in the harshest deserts, something good can still grow.